This is Tracy Hansen, and I am the designer of the Matrix of the Learner. And I want to thank Abdikar there in Algeria for all the lessons and the time that we spent, and for inviting me into this challenge of literary critical thinking. When he first contacted me a bit ago, he asked if I could give some students a very short literary text and see how they could understand it based on one question or two questions and using the critical thinking. I had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. And then he asked if I could relate this literary short story to The Matrix, which again meant I still had no idea what he meant. But as always, Abdikar and I started to discuss and talk and think about ideas, and that's when I came up with A Christmas Carol. Since it's nearly Christmas in the United States, it seemed appropriate for us to look at an individual whose present was not happy, although he never knew it. And so we looked at one passage when they talk about who he is now, and one passage that talked about who he was at the end of his exploration of what his past was, where he was in the present, and what his future was going to look like. So the question that I sent to them was, how does your past influence your present and future? And there were all sorts of very neat ideas, and some that would focus on one area or another area, and I'm going to just sort of summarize rather than try and highlight any one person, because they'll know who they are. One person wrote, "Do we forget our past to live fully in the present? Take a step back and review past so we can revise our present for a better future. Humans tend to not criticize themselves because it is easier to criticize others. But if we could judge ourselves and our actions as we do others, we could be surprised at how bad we really are about our actions towards others." So that's, again, looking at revising. Another person wrote, "The ghost of Christmas past taught him the value of perspective. If perspective is lost, then it is easy to get lost in the transactions of the moment. He learned from the ghost of Christmas yet to come that his deeds will direct his future, and to recognize his needs to change." And I quote, "Gain perspective in order to know what is important, and observe your present, and always look forward and identify where and who you want to be." End quote. Another one said the spirits showed Scrooge there were once things in his life more important than money, but his choices left him lonely and alone. But his choices. And another young lady wrote, I believe lady here, "Human beings tend to be blinded by their ego and have this certitude of always being right despite being wrong. That being said, it is quite necessary for them to revise their actions and their status within society in terms of behavior and socialization. Being able to reflect on what you have done and been in the past make you understand that the choices you made led you to the current life and into the future." And in particular like this, "Sometimes you need to step out of the box to see the big picture." I have a radio show called Outside the Box. So, good wording. "The spirits," she quotes, I quote her now, "the spirits served as ego blockers so that Scrooge would perceive his life events clearly and be able to fully understand it in order to be able to change it." And then two writers actually shared stories about how they felt and could um, connect with the story. One writes, being the youngest child in the family isn't all good, as most people see it. Of course, I was spoiled by my parents, but I had some difficult times with my siblings, mainly my oldest one. He always seemed too strict to me, especially when it came to using the computer. He even locked it with a password just to keep me away from it. And boy, did I get mad when I used to mess, or when he got mad when I used to mess it up and had to bring it to his friend to fix it. Fast forward to now, and our relationships are really better because I'm an adult now. However, when my little nephew showed up and started asking me to let him use my computer, I found myself turning him down most of the times and shouting at him when he messes up my personal stuff. And one day I was shouting at him because he had broke my joypad, and at that very moment I had an epiphany. I was looking at his face, and it seemed like I was looking at my own me. Because he was showing the same face expressions, and I realized that I am copying my brother exactly. Almost as if I had switched characters, so I stopped and looked and took a deep breath and told him, it's all right. I'm going to buy another one, and one extra for you if you do really well in exams. Because that is what my young self would have loved to have heard from my brother. And that's why I think Scrooge had to be taken to his past. It was to make him change himself to be a better person. In brief, if we remember what we were, we will know what we are now and realize what we want to be. And the second story, yes, my past is influencing my present, but I no more have a chance to fix it. What I could have done like Scrooge, which had the opportunity to fix his mistakes. I had an aunt named Hamida, I think. She was 40 years old, but she had the mind of a child. Yes, she suffered from epilepsy crises. It's a central nervous disorder in which the brain activity becomes abnormal. And in my aunt's case, her brain stopped developing at the level of an 8-year-old aged child. I became familiar and accustomed to her illness. I think that's why I have never gave it much importance. She always told me that she loved me. She always asked me, do I love her? She always looked for attention and interest, but all the answers I have given her were simply by a nod, my head, or remaining silent. And when she wanted to say something, I considered it meaningless. So I simply ignored her. And I'm not a heartless person, but we don't know the true value of what we have until we lose it. Yes, my aunt died in 3 years, and I still regret not telling her how much I loved her, and still love her. Not sitting with her and listening to her childish ideas. Yes, I regret not embracing her. A day before her death, me and my family visited her. When we were about to leave, I stopped at the door. Something told me that this was my last chance. I returned to the room in which she was laying on the bed, and with yellow skin tones and tired closed eyes. And I kissed her on her forehead, and before leaving, I whispered in her ear, Hamida, I love you. Forgive me. And she smiled. Yes, she did. And this was the first time I had the courage to say those words to her, but the last. It may be the impact of the society we are living in, which forbids any kind of loud, emotional expressions. We do love our parents, our brothers, our sisters. We love our aunts and uncles. We love our children. We also make mistakes towards each other. But we have never had the courage to say what is truly deep inside our hearts. We are handicapped while expressing ourselves and our emotions. This experience taught me to be honest with myself and to say what I really want to say before it's too late, because waiting was a huge mistake. Now, however, I had the chance, and I apologize for my mistakes. I thank every person who has done something good for me. I forgive their mistakes, and I tell my family that I love them before I'm out of time. I learn to treasure the value of the moment before it becomes a memory. Now I know how to express myself correctly, and I think this is a lesson we should teach to a new generation so that they feel the value of each moment in their lives. So, first of all, I want to thank all the kids who shared their ideas and their stories, because they were deeply moving and touching, and ones we can all learn from. One of the interesting things that I hear going throughout all of them is that past experiences, it's not just having knowledge of the past experiences, that's not enough. You have to reflect on what those experiences are. You have to think about them. If we don't reflect and analyze that knowledge, then we're much more apt to do what we've done in the past. It's easier and more comfortable to keep the picture or pictures that get passed down to us generation after generation after generation, rather than to take the risk to change the picture. Our system for learning and education continue to dictate the past rather than allow for a different picture to better suit positive movement into our future. Whether reflecting as an individual, a group, or community, or country, we are the world, and we need to understand that we're in this together. To save humanity, then we must get away from the me and into the us. And we can only do that if we can change the picture. Abdikar understands and allows his students to think outside the box and change the picture for themselves and experience and learn. And I believe that this is a wonderful example of exactly what it looks like. Thank you, Abdikar. Thank you, the kids that participated. Thank you, Algeria.